What if I told you that loyalty isn't born from love, fear, or even respect, but from a carefully crafted illusion of being irreplaceable? That the most powerful leaders in history, from emperors to CEOs, didn't demand loyalty, they engineered it. They made their people feel needed, vital, essential, until serving became a matter of identity, not obligation. Stick around, because this isn't just about power, it's about how you hold people close without chains. Welcome to a world where philosophy meets strategy and loyalty is no accident. If you're into the psychology of influence, the secrets of historical power moves, and the deep logic behind emotional control, you're exactly where you need to be. Hit that subscribe button and buckle in, because today we uncover the hidden machinery behind the phrase, "make them feel needed," that keeps them loyal. And no one explains it better than the likes of Niccolò Machiavelli, Hobbes, Hegel, and even the lesser-known mystics of loyalty like Ibn Khaldun. Niccolò Machiavelli once wrote, "Men are more likely to be faithful to those who provide them with purpose than those who merely provide them with favor." That's your first clue, your guiding principle. Machiavelli wasn't being cynical, he was being surgical. He understood that human loyalty is a resource too volatile to be bought with kindness or perks alone. Shower people with gifts, and they'll smile as long as the gifts keep coming. But the moment the well dries up, so does their allegiance. Gratitude fades. Entitlement festers. But give someone a mission, something that taps into their sense of identity, that makes them feel essential to a cause, and they'll endure hardship, take risks, even fight to protect the structure that gives them meaning. This isn't trickery or manipulation. It's the design of durable allegiance. Purpose creates emotional gravity. It binds. It anchors. It builds something stronger than dependence, it builds devotion. To see this principle in motion, rewind the historical clock to the blood-soaked politics of Renaissance Italy. Enter Cesare Borgia, nobleman, general, and Machiavelli's living model of power executed with intelligence. Borgia didn't rule by flattery, nor did he rely on blind loyalty. He inherited chaos and carved out order, not by coercion alone, but by making even his enemies feel indispensable. Rival families, mercenary commanders, opportunists with shifting loyalties, he didn't just subdue them, he repurposed them. Each man received a task, a defined role that tethered him to Borgia's vision. They weren't just tools, they were co-architects in the blueprint of control. And that mattered. Once a man has been woven into the structure of something grand, stepping away feels like tearing out a part of himself. Borgia understood, fear could spark obedience, but relevance, that sacred sense of being needed, was what kept people loyal, even when their instincts told them to run. Now, shift the lens to the Islamic Golden Age and the writings of Ibn Khaldun, whose theories on power and civilization still hold weight centuries later. He introduced the concept of asabiyya, a kind of social solidarity or group cohesion that binds individuals into something greater than the sum of its parts. According to Khaldun, the success of a civilization hinges not on technology or treasure, but on the shared sense of belonging among its people. When individuals believe they are integral to a collective identity, when they see their efforts reflected in the rising arc of a civilization's story, they commit. They serve. They protect. But when people are treated as expendable, as interchangeable cogs in a machine they do not understand, loyalty evaporates. Societies fragment. Leaders falter. Khaldun argued that enduring loyalty comes from embedding individuals into the living fabric of the system, not just as functionaries, but as emotional, cultural, and spiritual foundations. Leaders who understand this don't just command, they unify. Jump forward a few centuries and enter the stark, unflinching mind of Thomas Hobbes. Writing in the wake of civil war, Hobbes envisioned a world teetering on the edge of chaos, where life without structure was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In his landmark work Leviathan, Hobbes made the case that people surrender freedom and grant loyalty to a sovereign because the alternative, anarchy, is unbearable. But here's the nuance: fear might initiate obedience, but it doesn't maintain it. Hobbes wasn't naive. He recognized that even the most absolute ruler had to construct the illusion, or perhaps the reality, of participation. Citizens had to believe they played a role, however small, in the machinery of order. They had to see themselves not as captives, but as co-creators of peace. The sovereign who makes his subjects feel like stakeholders builds a loyalty far more stable than that rooted in fear alone. Hobbes knew, even in tyranny, the feeling of being needed is a salve against rebellion. Then came Hegel, who radically reimagined the dynamics of power and recognition. In his master-slave dialectic, Hegel argued that identity and self-awareness arise not in isolation, but through relationships, especially hierarchical ones. The master asserts dominance, but paradoxically becomes dependent on the slave for affirmation of that dominance. And the slave, in turn, gains a sense of self through his labor, through his role in shaping the world. Loyalty, then, is not forged in dominance alone, but in mutual dependence. The ruled define the ruler just as much as the ruler defines the ruled. It's not about blind obedience, it's about being seen, acknowledged, and folded into a shared identity. Hegel's theory flips conventional power on its head. The most enduring loyalty doesn't come from subjugation, but from reciprocal recognition. When people feel that their presence and labor shape the leader's purpose, loyalty ceases to be duty, it becomes identity. Feudal Japan offers another striking model of this principle, embodied in the samurai code of Bushido. These were not just warriors bound by contracts, they were bound by ethos, by honor, by a profound sense of spiritual and social duty. Samurai served their lords not simply because they were paid to, or because they feared retribution, but because their identities were fused with the identity of their master. To be a samurai was to represent a living embodiment of one's lord's values, courage, discipline, integrity. That's how loyalty was cultivated, not as obligation, but as shared significance. Walking away didn't just mean disloyalty, it meant erasing the very meaning of one's existence. This fusion of personal identity with collective purpose created a loyalty so deep that it survived the loss of battles, the fall of dynasties, even death. When loyalty is honor, it becomes eternal. Fast forward to the modern era and enter the high-stakes, high-pressure world of Silicon Valley, where another kind of general rose to prominence, Steve Jobs. To many, he was brilliant but brutal, demanding, exacting, often merciless. And yet, people stayed. Why? Because Jobs didn't just offer employment, he offered transcendence. Working at Apple under Jobs wasn't a job. It was an invitation to join a revolution. He positioned every team member, from designer to engineer, as part of a cosmic mission to reshape the future. It wasn't about making computers, it was about making history. That sense of purpose transformed loyalty from a corporate transaction into a crusade. People endured long hours, intense criticism, and relentless pressure because they believed they were essential. Not replaceable. Not redundant. Chosen. When a leader makes you feel like your fingerprints are on the blueprint of something legendary, walking away feels like self-erasure. That's not just loyalty. That's legacy. Even the darkest corners of human behavior echo this pattern. Look at cults, often dismissed as pure manipulation. But the truth runs deeper. Cult leaders don't just deceive, they assign meaning. They give people roles, responsibilities, rituals. They create a world where every individual matters uniquely. You're not just a follower, you're a gatekeeper, a guardian, a prophet, a chosen one. Strip those roles away, and what's left? For many, nothing. Their identity dissolves. The loyalty seen in cults isn't sustained by ideology alone, it's sustained by the terror of irrelevance. When your sense of worth is tethered to your function within a group, leaving feels like death. That's the terrifying genius of these systems, they convert belonging into survival. Loyalty, in these cases, becomes not just emotional, it becomes existential. Modern neuroscience doesn't just echo these ancient insights, it validates them down to the chemical level. When a person feels genuinely needed, when they sense their contribution has weight and their absence would be felt, the brain responds with a surge of reward chemicals, dopamine and oxytocin. These are the same neurological agents that fire when we experience love, trust, and the euphoric pull of addiction. In essence, being needed feels good. It wires us for connection. It cements attachment. This is why people return to places, roles, and leaders that give them that rush of purpose. It's not abstract, it's biological. Great leaders intuitively understand this. They don't just assign work, they craft ecosystems where each person fits like a critical gear in a precise machine. Where every job, no matter how small, has visible consequence. Where identity isn't just acknowledged, it's reinforced by contribution. In such environments, loyalty isn't asked for. It emerges because the brain is literally rewarding people for staying connected. And yet, this is exactly where most people, leaders, partners, even parents, fail spectacularly. They demand loyalty as if it's owed, like a moral tax to be paid out of obligation or guilt. They lean on hierarchy, seniority, or past favors, expecting allegiance to flow unchallenged. But as Machiavelli would say, with a smirk and probably a dagger behind his back, loyalty isn't granted by merit, it's engineered by design. You don't get to keep people because you were generous once or because you think you've earned their trust. Loyalty is a living, breathing thing, it needs constant nourishment. If people don't feel crucial to the mission, they will disengage. Quietly at first. Then completely. The smartest leaders don't hope for loyalty. They build it. They create structures, systems, and stories in which people see themselves as linchpins. Removing them would break something vital. And when people believe that, they stay. The Roman generals were masters of this game. They understood that loyalty wasn't bred in the barracks, it was forged on the battlefield and sealed in the aftermath. After victory, they didn't just thank the troops, they told their stories. They called them by name in front of the legion. They elevated their ranks, handed out rewards, held triumphal parades through the streets of Rome. The message was clear: you mattered. Not as a faceless soldier of the empire, but as a key figure in a saga of conquest and glory. Julius Caesar knew this better than anyone. His men didn't follow him across the Rubicon because of duty. They followed him because he had made them feel immortal. Their victories weren't just his, they were shared. Their loyalty wasn't to Rome, not really. It was to the men who made them feel like legends. And when loyalty becomes personal, it becomes unshakable. So if you're looking to build unbreakable loyalty, in your company, your team, your movement, your relationships, stop thinking in terms of reward and punishment. That's primitive. Think in terms of identity. Don't just give people tasks to complete. Give them roles that mean something. Assign them space in the architecture of your vision and show them exactly how they hold it up. Let them see that without their presence, something would collapse or remain unfinished. Make it impossible for them to view themselves as replaceable. Loyalty doesn't come from comfort. It comes from contribution. From relevance. From being the missing piece that completes the picture. You want people to stay. Don't just lead them. Need them. And show them exactly why. Powerful, isn't it? Loyalty doesn't come from force, it comes from function. And when people feel like they're the function, they'll stick with you even when the world falls apart. This is the Beyond the Surface channel. If that hit you, like this video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, where have you seen loyalty built through necessity? Let's keep this conversation smart, sharp, and real. Thank you for watching.